My name is Alyssa Mahadeo, journalist and community reporter, and I dedicate my time to searching for the stories that matter the most. Positive, uplifting, and inspiring stories that spotlight the challenges and obstacles we conquer to become the people who we are today. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the fairy tale lifestyles that people seem to be living on social media. Girl, you did not wake up like that. I'm interested in the genuine connections, the honest opinions, and the real uncut version of your true self. This show is about keeping it 100% real, deconstructing who we are and what we're all about. Join me as we sit down with individuals to discuss the personal struggles, the many challenges, and the moments that define us on this journey of self-discovery. Let's be real, life isn't fair and people make mistakes, but every opportunity is a learning experience. Let's discover the truth together right here on Real Talk. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host Alyssa Mahadeo, and I'm here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Guys, please excuse my voice today. I'm a little bit congested, trying to get over a cold right now, so I sound like this. But never fear, I'm still here. We've got a very exciting show today, as we do every week. Today, the theme of our show, or the topic of the show, is forgiveness. Again, something that people deal with on a day-to-day basis, something that people have to confront eventually, depending on the situation, the scenario, or even just something that's happened to them during their lifetime. Today, the guest on my show is Laura Avolese, and she is here today, and she's a realtor, a 2-time international best-selling author, speaker, and she also has an upcoming book that is coming out this September called Breaking Barriers. So Laura is going to be joining me on the show, and today we are going to be talking about forgiveness. Just to kind of give everyone some kind of a little bit of perspective with what's happening right now in the city and the Toronto shootings, there's just so many things that are happening, and it's so easy to just blame people for everything that's kind of happening. A lot of people want to point fingers. A lot of people want to they just have these negative feelings and emotions that come out in these type of scenarios, cases. People have lost loved ones, and my heart goes out to all of those families who are dealing with the outcome of the situations that have happened. It's very, very tragic, but the topic of forgiveness is something that is very sensitive. A lot of people, when you ask them if like worst case scenario, if they could forgive someone over something, a lot of the times the answer is no. We kind of tend to get in our feelings about a lot of things, and not really want to. We kind of wish that someone else could feel the kind of pain that we do as well. I know in my own life I've had to deal with a lot of things in the same situation where, you kind of just don't want to forgive people, or you kind of want to play devil's advocate in a situation. Just be like, nope, I'm not trying to deal with the situation. And when you hold on to those emotions and those negative emotions, it doesn't allow you to move forward in your life. So today we're going to be talking about forgiveness on the show, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Laura is going to join me on the show. We'll be right back. You're watching Real Talk.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm joined by my guest today, Laura Avolese. She's here, and she's going to be talking about the topic of forgiveness. Laura, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
As I mentioned before, guys, Laura is a realtor, a 2-time international best-selling author. She is also a speaker, and she has an upcoming book. So she's authoring her own book,
Yes.
right, in September. So Laura, for the audience, let's tell them a little bit about you and your backstory.
Sure.
Just to introduce the segment. Where are you from?
I'm Italian.
Mm-hmm.
I am from Sicily. I was born in Toronto, and my family came from Sicily. But as a child growing up, we went back and forth to Sicily and Toronto. So growing up, I didn't know how to speak English,
Okay.
which was really difficult
Yeah.
going to school, because we would probably spend 6 months in Italy, and then my parents would decide to come back and live in Toronto. Growing up was it was a challenge.
I know. So Laura's backstory, I was reading Laura's bio when I invited her on the show, and Laura's backstory is very, we always talk about Real Talk, and we talk about the things that we're going to discuss on the show, and it's always about the challenges, the obstacles, the difficulties of life that we kind of go through. And Laura's childhood is a little bit different than many. Laura's had to deal with a lot of childhood trauma in the sense of there's been abuse in her life.
Yes.
Her mother was murdered. And again, these are things that, again, people don't really like to talk about. But it's very brave of you to kind of later in your life to kind of come to terms with everything and be able to talk about it openly.
Yes.
So share with little.
I think sometimes
Yeah.
right now, people, when they hear my story and they hear my mom was murdered when I was 9,
Their
afraid.
immediate reaction is like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And they sort of don't know what to say next. But I always tell people, especially in a situation like today, like Real Talk, like I said to you in an email, I'm very open to discussing and talking anything that I've been through, because I've finally have recognized the fact that there's a lot of us that are hurting, and there's a lot of us that go through things and challenges and traumas in our lives. And unless we come to terms with them, our lives may not, proceed or go the way we want it to. And that's what happened to me from the age of, actually from a very small, young age. In Sicily, I was abused somewhat sexually by two men, and it started at a very young age. So as a child, you don't really know what's going on there, but you know that there's something wrong. And at the same time, I also watched abuse on my mom, right? She was physically abused by my dad on a regular basis. And when I was 9, he took matters and he killed her. And
they escalated, yeah.
So growing,
and,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, and this is something I have to ask. Were you there? Did you like?
So I actually at that time was living in Toronto with my grandparents. My
Okay.
brother and my sister were in Italy with my parents. Because of growing up and going back and forth, the last time they went back, I made a big stink about it that I didn't want to go back to Italy. I guess the fact that maybe I was the oldest of 3, and I remember not liking what I saw. So my maternal grandparents, decided to keep me, and this is when I went to school and learned how to speak English. They were supposed to send me back to Italy, but that didn't happen because my dad made a phone call to say that my mom would not be returning, and so that's exactly what happened.
So, how did you guys find out? Like, was it through that call?
Yeah, so back in the day, there was no dialing direct. You had to go through the operators. Because this was back in 1977. So when my aunt came home from work, she called back home. My grandma was on the phone, and I knew there was something wrong because my grandmother was acting kind of weird. And so I was on the phone upstairs listening because I wanted to know what was going on. And my aunt in Italy said that there's been an accident. Maria was in an accident. My grandmother said, what kind of an accident? Is she in the hospital? And they said, no, she's dead. And I heard all that.
You heard all of that?
I heard of that on the phone. So I immediately started screaming.
Yeah.
It was very difficult as a 9-year-old. And it's a memory that still sits in your head, and it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. But that's the thing about forgiveness also, is not that you forget what's happened, right? You're never going to forget it. So,
what kind of person was your mom?
My mom was...
we have some photos, actually, as well.
My mom was a very beautiful, vibrant woman. She was, she's always the life of the party. I guess I take a lot after her. And so when people see my picture or her picture, they think that I look exactly like her. Sometimes people mistaken me for her. And people do that with my daughter now. My daughter's 25, and they mistaken my daughter and myself. Sometimes they think it's me or her or whatever.
Yeah.
She was very, very vibrant. She was beautiful. Very stylish, and made sure that we were always dressed in style. And she was a jokester. She always loved to play tricks and jokes on people. And she was just the life of the party, and that's kind of who I am.
Yeah. So, in dealing with the loss of your mother, when you moved back to Canada, you were living in Toronto.
Yes.
You didn't go back to Italy. You
No.
didn't want to go back at all. No. What was living with your grandparents like, after this experience?
Very interesting. My grandparents are extremely loving people, and they, gave us the world, but they come from a very strict background. There's some of us cultures that we have an extremely strict background, and so as a child growing up, I was not allowed to do what the other young kids are doing, going on school trips, going to skating, going swimming, those kinds of things, camp. I was the only one in grade 8 who wasn't allowed to go to the last year week trip. I was the only one in class, and I'm still resentful. Oh, you've got the picture of...
Yeah, those are your grandparents.
So those are my grandparents, and my grandma is still alive. She's 91. She'll be 92 in September. And my grandfather passed away. That was another tragic happening that we can discuss later or another time. And that's my mom. I believe she was that's in Sicily. She was probably about 14 years old there. She did meet my dad about that age, and they eloped at a very young age, because that was the thing you did back then. She was definitely an animal lover, so you see her with the dog. And as you can see at 14, how stylish she was
Yeah,
back then.
very stylish.
I mean, when was that? If she was 14, she was born in 1948, so the 50s, right?
And do you remember your father too? Like, what kind of person was he at that time?
I remember everything. My
Yeah.
father, he was one of those. Well, so my father's, your typical macho Italian man, right? So. When my mom was pregnant, I'm the firstborn, and as an Italian man, the first thing that an Italian man wants is a son. And so I think there was a little bit of disappointment there that I wasn't the son that he was looking for. So I think when I, knowing that throughout my life, sort of, there's that, wow, so I wasn't even wanted from the time I was born,
you were a girl,
right? So,
yeah.
but he is he's still around. He's a character.
Yeah. Do you still have a relationship with your dad?
So, well, I guess so. What happened was back in 1996, I finally I was introduced to an amazing personal development course where I was taught a lot of things that has changed the course of my life and brought me to where I am today. And one of the things there was forgiveness. So it was a 4-day workshop that I was at, and I couldn't do the forgiveness during those 4 days. I tried, but it was very difficult. But I went on to do the intensive, and in the 5 to 6 day sleepover, we had a really intense session of forgiveness, and it was probably the most powerful thing that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I don't know if anybody follows Wayne Dyer and his story in his movie when he talks about going to his dad's grave and going through forgiveness and saw the shadow of his father. For me, it was an exciting moment because what happened was growing up it was very challenging. I had a lot of problems. Got involved in, alcohol, drugs, all kinds of things. And so when I went through this forgiveness, you're sitting in a chair, you have the facilitator. It was a long experience. It wasn't an easy experience. And they go through forgiveness of mom and dad. And I remember when I was finished, I was sitting in a chair, my eyes closed, and I just felt like my body was raised. It was like, honestly, I felt like I had millions of pounds just leave my body.
Yeah. And
what I did see was this little girl in pigtails, and I was holding my mom and my dad's hand, and I saw us three walking, and it was gorgeous. It was like you had died and gone to heaven. It was all green, trees, beautiful. And it was really an amazing experience. And that's when I knew that I had truly forgiven him.
I want to hear so much more about this experience, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Laura. So we'll be right back. You're watching Real Talk. Hi everyone, and welcome back. You're watching Real Talk. I'm also watching it, guys. We're back here, guys, in the studio, and I'm here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Guys, if you have any questions, make sure that you guys do tweet us, hashtag Real Talk TCN, if you have any questions for the show today. Today, our topic is guys, I'm sick, so I'm also a little bit all over the place, guys, but we are talking about forgiveness today. And today on the show, I have Laura Avolese, and she's here, and she's talking about her own experience, her own journey through life and through forgiveness. Laura, before we went to break, I know that you mentioned a little bit about your grandparents. You were raised after your mother was murdered. You stayed here in Toronto and you lived with them. But what's that like for a child? What did your grandparents do for you at that time?
So again, back to the culture thing, being Italian, there wasn't any therapy for, the kids. You just don't talk about it, and you just move on. And even back then in schools, I believe that sometimes I feel like I was let down by even the school system, because I was very troubled, obviously. I mean, I was hurting. I was missing my mom on a regular basis. And even 41 years later, I got to tell you, the pain is still there. I still go through, times where I get into deep sadness for her, like missing her and stuff. But growing up, it was extremely difficult because you didn't talk about it, because there was no help. There was no psychological help at all. There's nothing. You just have to learn to cope with it. It was extremely difficult.
And were your siblings with you?
So my sister was raised with me. My brother was stayed in Italy with my dad's side of the family.
Okay. Okay, so you didn't have both of your siblings with you here?
No, just my sister.
Okay, and then, so, I mean, what kind of things, like, what was your mental situation like at that time? Your health, like your mental health.
What mental health? It was mental health.
You know what I mean? But
yeah. It was really hard. I was I gotta tell you, I was a very angry little girl. I was angry. I was resentful. I hated my father. I mean, my sister and I talked about, we wanted to see him being tortured. We wanted to see him go through the suffering that my mom went through, and we wanted to see him go through the suffering that my sister and I were going through. My sister was much younger. She's 5 years younger than I am, so she doesn't remember as much as I do. But it wasn't easy. It was a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of begging God to please do something and help me. I did go through a couple times where, I took pills, tried to end my life, and, got into really bad relationship. Well, bad relationships, and the relationships I was in, I was just sort of attracting my father into my life, like they say you do, right? Because the aura that I had was clearly terrible, right?
Yeah, and that's what they say. You do kind of attract whatever it is that you put out. How did it affect, schooling and learning and things like that?
Well, I was never a great student. I was never been a good student. But I think also because of the fact that it wasn't until I was in grade 4. When I was in grade 4, that was my first time that I was actually in a school full time where I started to learn English. So I was pretty behind. So when it came to I was in a special ed class in grade 4, and then in grade 5, when they put me into a normal class, the principal wanted to put me in grade 4, but I wanted to be with kids my age. I wanted to belong. Yeah. And they said that, they would try me in grade 5, but if I was falling behind, that they would put me behind. I struggled. I would definitely didn't I struggled. But there was times like throughout even high school where for some reason, I'm still the same way today, is that even when I used to work at jobs growing up, I could do two things at one time, and they could never understand how I could have high marks even at a job that I was doing, and because I was always the chatterbox. I've always been one to talk. Yeah. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle with relationships with kids, because everybody was living this North American style life, where I was being raised in a Sicilian background, with traditional and very strict rules. I mean, if I talked to a boy, I'd get beatings.
Yeah, I mean that's in my culture too. I mean, you can't talk to boys at all until you're like 30.
Exactly.
I have a little cousin, and her mom was asking her, she's like, when are you allowed to have a boyfriend? When I'm 40.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Was there any, I know, like, as you were mentioning, that when something like this happens, there's never anyone you can talk to. There's never someone that you can, especially within the culture, you can't.
Actually, I did have someone, and I had my aunt. Okay. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to my aunt, because she was my mom's youngest sister, and it's amazing because there's 4 sisters, and this aunt and my mom were extremely close, very, very close. And this aunt was the one, she was my rock. She was everything to me. And she was the one that I did get to go to some dances and some activities and some things, because she would tell my grandparents that she's taken me out. and she would drop me off at a party, and that's how I actually sort of had somewhat of a a childhood life. But she was everything to me, and she still is everything to me today. She's always been there for me, no matter what I need. I can always count on her and call on her. And she has 3 children of herself. Her daughter is my goddaughter, and my goddaughter and I are extremely close. So I'm very, very close, actually, from here. That's where I'm heading. My grandma's in the hospital right now, so they're there with her, and it's her. She took the place. Although my grandparents were my legal guardians, she took the place from my mom.
I'm not crying because of the story. I mean, I kind of need some water, but totally lost my train of thought because of this cough. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
And I'm really glad that you had someone like that to talk to. Were you able to ever make any friends that you were able to open up to, or to allow personal stories like that to to share?
Yeah, actually, some of my I'm still really good friends with my elementary school friends. I have a very close group of friends that I still, after 40 years, we're still great friends. And one friend in particular, she was also that rock friend that I had. I did have before that. What happened was I had a best friend in grade 5, 6, and she ended up dying of leukemia in grade 6. So not only had I lost my mom, now I just lost my best friend. It was, I was a wreck. By grade 6, it was like, hello, anything else? But
and I can't imagine, like, when you lose so many people, like, it takes a toll on you.
Yes.
Because you don't really know what to do or where to turn to, or, kind of how to move on to the next thing.
Well, when you're a child, and even as an adult, and if you're not taking care of yourself, you're still going to be a mess, because you're going to go from one tragedy to another. And I mean, it's just you've got to have balance. You've got to take care of your soul. And I believe, I'm a big believer, and I work on a daily routine every single day. Things aren't perfect. They're never perfect, but there's highs and lows all the time. But it's a matter of knowing how to get out of those lows and don't stay in those lows, right?
Well, it's like you said too as well. People kind of sink into depression. They sink into a place again where it becomes like a hole. You just keep burying yourself in this hole, and you can't come out of it at the end of the day. And like, how do you even cope with some of those things?
As a child or now?
Not now, because I know now is a different time. But
there was to really, at that time, there was nothing to cope with. There was no coping. I mean, you just always felt pain. It was always pain. That's all I can describe. Like, growing up is painful. And
then these relationships that you found yourself in.
Yeah. So I fell in love, puppy love, at the age of 14, 15, and was in a relationship for a couple of years, and eventually found out that he was cheating on me and stuff like that. So, and then it got into an abusive relationship, physical abuse, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm living my mother's life now, right? Because it's funny, because she met my dad at 14, and I believe I was 14 going into 14 turning 15, or 15 turning 16 when I met this young man. So that lasted about 2 years until I said, like, enough. But then it didn't end there. Then I ended up meeting another man who there was emotional and mental abuse. So it was just, those kinds of relationships that followed me, right? Just until I was able to go through that. Once you go through forgiveness, true forgiveness, your whole life changes. Everything changes around you.
I also have, like, before we go to break, one more question too. Did you ever feel that you kind of deserved some of the treatment that you were receiving?
That I did or didn't?
That you did.
That's a good question. I mean, sometimes, even as an adult, I did, and then sometimes I'd be like, why me? Like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
So it's you go through all the emotions, you go through all the feelings, and there's issues of worthiness at a lot of times, right? Because where does the worthiness come from? If it's not coming, if you don't have it within, you're not going to feel it, right?
Yeah.
So
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Laura and her story. All right, we'll be right back.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity in our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Welcome back, guys. We're watching Real Talk. I'm also kind of choking because, again, I'm still going through this cold, guys. But, you know, we're making it through this show. Laura is sharing a lot of her personal story. And, again, if you want to get real today, this is probably one of the realest shows we've had. Laura, I don't know how you've gone through so much trauma, so much loss, so much in your life, and also keep a smile on your face still. Like, it does not make sense to me. Like, I always feel like people who have dealt with some of the things that you have, like, would just be very sad, very, like, introverted people who would want to, like, keep to themselves most of the time and not want to have to deal with, you know, the public, to not want to have to share their story because, again, like you said, in your culture, it's very difficult for you to bring up things like this and talk about it openly because people generally don't want you to talk about it.
No, they don't. And the thing is that I finally got to the point where I realized, you know, like one of the other things that are, you know, there's in cultures is what are the people going to say, right? So
Yeah.
I grew up with what are the people going to say. And I've always been one that, you know what, I need to care about what I think. Mm-hmm. And as long as I am being true to myself, as long as I'm not doing things that are hurting others and being honest and ethical, mm-hmm. that's what's important to me. And so a few years ago, I've always wanted to write my book. I just thought that I wanted to write my book for when my dad would be gone, mm-hmm. but he's not, and he's still here. And it was time that I needed to share my story. I think today, especially today, there's a huge movement going on. I think today many of us need to hear stories such as myself because so many people are angry. There's so much suicide. I mean, what's going on in Toronto right now mm-hmm. is I just can't. I grew up. I worked at a real estate office
in Toronto
where that happened this past weekend, the shootings, and it's very sad. And you know, we were just talking about in the office about forgiveness in that that aspect, because what's going to happen is even the survivors that are there, they're going to be angry, they're going to be resentful, and they're going to carry this anguish with them, and it's going to do nothing but create problems for them until you learn that you need to actually forgive that person that has done that, and whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter, but they can't hang on to it. It's very sad. I feel really horrible for what's happening, especially in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto. Like, now we have these drive-by shootings that are happening. It's pretty sad. So, I think that we need to really be open about our talk. My biggest concern when I started writing my book was more of my kids, not anyone else, because of my story. There's a lot of information there. Although my kids know a lot of my story, there were still things that I wanted to be cautious and careful about.
It's a very personal thing to be able to share your thoughts that way, especially in a book. I know a lot of people who won't write books because of the same thing. Like, it's very, that personal, that inner dialogue that you put down now on paper, it's something that you're like, I never thought I would share that with the world.
Right. And it's true. But I think what's happening now is, like, I like to do a lot of Facebook Lives and talk about whatever. Sometimes I'm, like, when Oprah did that Me Too, I woke up, I just felt like I needed to do something about that. I needed to say something. And I did. And I did a live Facebook chat, and I talked about the Me Too that was going on. Just on Facebook alone, I had over 4,000 views. I put it in other social media sites that I have. And so I probably had over 5,000 views in this Me Too talk. I think it was about 15, 20 minutes long. But I came from the heart. And I had people from all over the world. Like, I had a lady from England. I had people just private messaging me, because people want to be free. People want to be free of pain. They want to have the suffering stop. And they don't know how. And I know that there's, therapists and all kinds of stuff that, you can go through. I personally, I suffered a massive depression. I'm not a believer of medication for me. I believe in working from the inside out. Okay. I believe in, working in having a morning routine where you work out, you meditate, you write in a grateful journal. I believe those little things that you can do first thing in the morning are life-changing, and they changed my life. Yeah. They were really, really the staple of who I am today. And sometimes, I stop doing it, because you get busy and I'll do it, everything's going great. And then I start to see my life kind of revolve backwards, and I'm like, what's going on? Why is my life going back? What? And then I realize I've stopped going through that morning routine. And so I always tell people that. And I believe that anyone that has a story, some people say, well, my story isn't as big as yours. No, we all have a story. It doesn't matter how big it is or how.
I don't believe that. And I've heard that from a lot of people. A lot of people are just like, oh, my story is not as big as yours, or it's not as impactful as yours, or I didn't go through as much as you, so I don't have that same experience. But everyone experiences something. Absolutely.
And your story, no matter what your story is, if you change one life, I'm going to tell you something, that there was one person for sure that was on the suicide standby, pretty much. Like, she was ready. And today she's like, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. Yeah. So if it's only one person that you have an impact on, then you've done your job. And that's I believe that I'm here to serve. I think the way I look at it is this way. I can't remember the name of the one chapter I have here, but the burdens and the tragedies and all the things I've been through, God chose me. He chose me because he decided that, and to me it's God, whoever your higher power is doesn't matter, but to me, I always turn to God. And God decided that, Laura, you know what? I'm going to give you all these trials and tribulations, because at the end of the day, I know that you can still keep that smile on your face. Even though you might still be having a rough time, you can still have that smile on your face, and you have the power to serve and change lives. And that's really what I want to do.
And it's not the first time I've heard that. A lot of women who have either have met or I've heard their stories say the very same thing. Like, the only reason they came out on the other side is because they realized that, again, like, they were chosen for this. This was their path. That that there was a higher power that thought that they could handle this, and that's why they gave it to them to.
Yeah. I once read, or someone said to me that there's, if you look at people's lives, and you've got the one friend who's never been through any tragic events, not even a death in their family, or around them, and that's because they wouldn't be able to handle it. Yeah. Right. So we're given what we can handle, and it's true what they say, like, God only gives you what you can handle. And sometimes I wonder, it's like, what again?
those people are given different demons, though. I feel like those people are given internal demons that they have to confront and deal with on their own time, on their own terms. This process of forgiveness, when did you finally come to terms with everything? I know you kind of mentioned it briefly a little bit in the beginning.
So I was 28 years old, about 22 years ago, I guess it was. It was 1995 that's when I was introduced to this personal development course that I did for 4 days, and that's where I learned forgiveness. But it was once I did the intensive that I completely, and then from that seminar, that's where I learned how to do my morning routine. And it's funny because a few years ago I came across a book called, I don't know if you've heard it, it's called The Miracle Morning. Okay. The author is Hal Errold. He's an amazing guy. And I bought his book, I read it, and I contacted him. He lives in California. And I said, Hal, you know what? You just wrote about everything I did back 22 years ago. Back 22 years ago, we had a Walkman. I don't know if you even know what a Walkman is. Or
yeah, I had a Walkman.
Sorry, not even. It was actually even before that. I had the cassette player.
Okay, didn't have that.
I had the cassette player, and I used to listen to Jim Rohn and Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and so Louise Hay. Yeah. And every morning I got up, I would meditate, and I would go for a brisk walk. Mm-hmm. And so I was every day filling my mind with something positive. Mm-hmm. And that's how it's just taking baby steps. And when you start taking those baby steps, trust me, I always say to people, if you can't do all those things, go exercise. I mean, although it's a number of things that you should be doing, at least start with meditation once a day. I guarantee and promise that if you stick to it for 30 days, you will see major changes in your life. Mm-hmm. I really do believe in that.
A lot of people struggle with that because then they can't quiet their mind.
It doesn't matter. I've been doing it for years and years. My mind's never quiet.
And that's the thing. But that's what people don't realize, that it's not just about quieting your mind. Right. It's just about sitting with your thoughts and thinking about these things.
That, or you do a lot. I do a lot of the ones that are what do you call them? Like right now, I'm doing the 21-day Deepak and Oprah meditation. It's a free meditation. It is like I buy them as well once they finish them. Mm-hmm. It is power. This one is so powerful. I'm loving it. And we're on day 5. So if you want, link into their app, and it's free for 21 days. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's really great. So I don't want to get into anything else until we come back. But we're gonna take one more quick break. When we come back, we're gonna wrap up the rest of this conversation with Laura here. So guys, we'll be right back.
Awesome. Thanks.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk. I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, and today on the show I have Laura Avolese, and she's here on the show today we're talking about the topic of forgiveness. Laura is a very, very, very strong woman. I must say, just listening to her story and hearing about some of the things that she's gone through, and you know what, it's the courage and the bravery to come here and talk about it, and to be open and honest about it, and also not be afraid of it. A lot of people are afraid of their past. A lot of people are
For sure.
are scared of what people might think about them.
Absolutely.
When they might share something like that. And it's a very judgmental thing. Like when you bring up something like murder, people are just like, "Oh my god." That's the immediate reaction.
The other, the best reaction is, what do you do? Shoot her?
Yeah.
Because people don't believe it, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yes. And they're like, oh
my
my God,
God.
I just stuck my foot in my mouth.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it with my forgiveness, so I'm okay to talk about it.
And then again, even losing other people who are close to you, it's a whole. It honestly feels like a little bit of a domino effect, but it's also the things that you've used as stepping stones to build yourself back up.
Absolutely.
In saying that, you've contributed to books,
Yes.
as well, so where you've been able to share your story, and then you are also writing your own book in September, which is coming out in September.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the books that you have contributed to.
Sure. Well, there's 4 books right now that I've got, and 2 have been published, which, as you mentioned, they are #1 international best-selling authors. A few years ago, I got involved with an organization group called Empowering Women to Succeed. Some people may know them, and Randy, she's amazing. But she has this was volume 4, and I went to one of the workshops, and I decided to be a part of their books because I know that my story was empowering. So I signed up for the first book, which is called 365 Empowering Stories. That's still to come out either later this year or in the beginning of 2019. But then I decided also, I came across another woman, and I was part of Dreaming Big, Being Bold. So these books, they're different authors. Like in this one, there's probably 12 to 15 authors, and we share our empowering stories. They're not all tragic, but they are inspiring. They are empowering. This one was called The Blessing in My Curse, and just kind of what I talked about before the break is that really the tragedies that I've been through, they've been a blessing, right? Because I am where I am today because of it. And then Empowering Women to Succeed was my journey to enough. So basically, they're similar. The stories kind of vary a little bit, but you can get them on Amazon. And then in September, I'm really excited. It's been a long haul, but my book, Breaking Barriers, is coming out. And this is my complete story of my life from childhood to now. So,
what does your family think about you writing this book?
Well, everyone has, I mean, I don't know. Like, what can I say? My kids are proud, of course, of their mom, and my family, some of them can't wait to read it because obviously they want to know if I've put them in there. But, some of the names of course have been changed and stuff, right? Some names have definitely been changed, but the real, the truth story of my mom and my dad and all that kind of stuff, and the things that I experienced, like the emotions that I had, the struggles that I had, the addictions that I had, and how I overcame them are all going to be in the book. So it's been definitely a long journey, and it's finally coming to fruition. As I said, September, we're going to start with launching. I've got a marketing girl that I'm going to start working with next week, so I'm really excited. Yeah.
Have you ever met anyone who's, shared their own personal traumas with you?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of workshops. I go to a lot of workshops. I do a lot of retreats, and there's all kind. It's amazing when I speak, especially with I'm going to say women, but I've heard stories from men as well that how they were abused, sexually abused as little boys, and these stories are really incredible. And what's amazing is that, again, like you said, people are afraid to share their story. When they talk to me and they hear my story, for some reason, they always say, "My God, I feel like I've known you for 20 years and I can open up and tell you everything."
Well, all of a sudden, yeah, once you've shared that.
And that's what happens. And so what happens is because I've been through it, and they know that I'm being real talk. It's all real. I'm really being authentic by what I say, and me trying to be that person who serves and who helps people. So I've met a lot of people, and people that I'll give you a perfect example. I was away this summer in Myrtle Beach in June, and there was a woman, an older woman, and we started talking, and we got really personal, and we sat by the pool and we're talking, and I was telling her about my books, and I gave her one, And she sat there and started telling me her stories. She says, do you know, I have never talked about my story to anyone.
And why would you?
And she's a complete stranger, and she says, I don't know why, but I feel like I can talk to you, and I can open up to you. And she had never shared anything, probably not even to her husband.
Yeah, and you know what it is? It's like, because I hear a lot of these stories too when we go to conferences and things like this of same women who just share like the most incredible stories. You don't even know where they find the strength to sometimes just get up on stage and speak, but it's the relatability of the entire experience, right? Because knowing that someone else has gone through something similar or something just as, you know, nerve-wracking or just as traumatizing as you have, it's very easy to be like, to feel comfortable around that person now because you feel like they're not going to judge you.
No, I'm far from a person who can judge anybody.
And that's the thing, and it's a lot of people don't share because of that fear of judgment, right? It's like, oh, well, what are they going to think about me?
I'm very outspoken, and I do speak my mind, and that's because I think that I'm not one to just sort of be passive. I believe, even with my kids, like, you know, my kids, especially my daughter, they know they can come to me for anything. But the thing is that no matter what's going on in their lives, they know they can come to me because I'm not going to judge them. But I will tell them if I like it or I'm disappointed or I don't like what you're doing and I don't like your friend that you're hanging out with. That's how I feel. But I'm not judging them. I'm not, you know, like, you've got my support. And anytime there's something, they know that they can call me, even if it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So they'll call me. But one place, I think you got to start somewhere. And I believe in personal development. And so try to, even on Facebook, there's so many groups going on right now. Even this, you know, the Real Talk, like if you follow and you listen to inspirational people, empowering people, it just gives you that little step of being able to maybe crack that shell that you're in, right? Because we all build these walls. September 25th, if I can share it, Empowering Women to Succeed is having an event. It's in Vaughan. It's a great place to network. They have trade shows, so there's people that have tables set up, and then there's empowering speakers. And all you have to do is come and listen. You know, you'd be amazed when you walk away from there, what you walk away with. You know, just even at the book launch that we had, the stories and the people that came up to me because they heard my story on stage, you know, it helped them to open up. And then, you know, I get these private messages. And I always say to people, even when I do my live Facebook chats, if you want to talk and you have nobody to talk to, just, you can message me. Like, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to share your information, and I would never certainly tell anybody who you are or what, you know. And sometimes people, this is the first thing they say, please don't say anything to anyone. And that's fine. That's not my job.
And you know what's funny? Like, me being a journalist, a lot of people don't want to share with me because they're just like, are you going to put all my information out there for everyone to share? And I always tell them, I'm always like, I'm not here to expose you to the world. Right? You tell me whatever you're comfortable with sharing, and I'm going to use that to share with other people so that they can relate to your experience, right? Like, it doesn't matter really what comes of it. It's just that it touches someone's life.
That's right.
Right? I mean, I always say this on every show and, like, shows before this, but the world is becoming this open forum for discussion. Women are able to share so much more easily the experiences that they've gone through and not felt like, you know, someone's going to consider them weaker for it.
That's right.
And again, like you mentioned before with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, again, women who have been victims of, you know, assault and violence and domestic abuse, things like that, those are things that we need to bring awareness to because of the next generation and letting and you know, informing them that, like, this is not something that you need to be subjected to.
No. And speaking of the Me Too movement, I was asked if I wanted to be in a magazine in the wintertime. I broke my ankle, so I was stuck at home, so I said sure. And I was in a magazine called SMJ, and it was they interviewed 5 women. And now I'm going to be part of a documentary with that.
Yeah, and that's really exciting. That's a really great project for you. So, Laura, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
You know, I wish you all the success with that, and I'm sure that, again, a lot of people will be able to learn from this story or to even feel, like, emotionally connected to you through your story.
Thank you.
And, you know, thank you for coming on the show today, you know, for sharing
Thank you so much
all
for
that you
having
did.
me.
Yes, because again.
These are for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming again to share this story and to share with everyone. Again, if you guys have any questions that you might want to ask Laura, all of her social media links are in the description box below, so make sure that you do check them out.
Awesome.
Thank you again for joining me again on another edition of Real Talk. It's been fun. I know we struggled a little bit because I'm sick, but guys, I am here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Guys, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you like this video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I will see you again next week.
Thank you.